And we've all got our eyes trained on a courthouse in Washington this morning where the grand jury, impaneled by the special counsel to investigate Donald Trump and election interference, is beginning to arrive as we speak. And that means a secret vote on whether to indict the former president could potentially come at any moment. NBC's Ryan Riley is at that courthouse. Our Garrett Hake is standing by in Washington, along with former federal prosecutor Cynthia Axne and veteran prosecutor and trial attorney Paul Henderson joins us as well. Let's get right to Ryan to start us off here. Do we know for sure if a vote is going to happen today, Ryan?
We don't know that for sure. All we know that they are present here at the courthouse. Our producers who have been tracking this grand jury over several months recognize some of the grand jurors and know that they are now upstairs on the third floor where the grand jury actually meets. So we're on the lookout for any potential witnesses that might come forward to testify. That's also something you sort of have to track and look at who potentially could testify. A few weeks back, we saw it was the fake electors, a couple of them who had come into town. So that's something we're continuing to watch. But, there is a little bit of an increased security presence, I would say, here. Certainly behind me, you notice that where normally we see members of the court staff's vehicles parked, you're going to see two police vehicles behind me, Federal Protective Services. So that's a little bit of a change. And, this is just really, I think, really getting to this point because, of course, now we are more than 2 weeks out from when Donald Trump got that target letter saying that he was indeed potentially going to be brought up on charges in connection with the effort to stop a peaceful transfer of power leading up to January 6th. The last time around, it was around 3 weeks, but, that's not necessarily set in stone. So it's certainly something we'll be watching here on Tuesday and once again on Thursday. That is, unless there's some sort of special session tomorrow. That we'll be keeping our eye out here for as well, Anna.
And it was 5 days ago, we know, Trump lawyers met with the special counsel at the D.C. courthouse, too, when the grand jury was meeting last Thursday. So, Garrett, are we hearing anything from Trump world as we all await a possible indictment?
Well, Anna, not since yesterday afternoon when the former president put out a post on his social media platform saying he expected an indictment any day now. The reality is that's the posture that Trump's campaign and his broader orbit have been in for a couple of weeks. They expect this to happen. They expect it to happen soon. He has no campaign events on his schedule this week until Friday. And as far as we can tell, no interviews, nothing else sort of public facing on the campaign front in the works. They are very much in a wait and see posture, knowing that when these indictments drop and the arraignments that follow, it tends to kind of swamp everything else that's happening in the campaign for at least a few days. Although up until this point, that's not been a bad thing for the former president. It blocks out any other news coverage for any other candidate. And in the first two indictments and arraignment cycles, he was able to raise significant amounts of money for his campaign. Although less the second time than the first, we'll see if that's a trend that continues if and when this next indictment drops.
Cynthia, if this vote happens today and we do see an indictment, what will you be looking for?
I'm looking for a couple things. I'm looking to see what judges assigned. I'm looking to see are there cooperating witnesses? We've had a lot of speculation about what is Mark Meadows doing. And one of the things we know about Jack Smith is he does speaking indictments and he will tell the story. And so we're going to learn who is it who has been cooperating and are there any surprises in there? And I'm looking to see well, first of all, let me just say, I think it's coming today because of the combination of things, not only what everybody's mentioned about how long it's been since the target letter, but in the last grand jury session, they spent about 7 hours without witnesses, which is a logical time to be doing a summation and then also charging the grand jury with instructions. So my guess is we're going to find out that we're going to get this indictment very soon. And recognize also, because sometimes witnesses do come in, Jack Smith is very comfortable doing a superseding indictment, and we've learned that from his case in Florida. So I'm looking for that judge and those cooperating witnesses, and I'm looking for that indictment to come today.
Paul, the Prosecuting Donald Trump podcast just had Judge Michael Luttig on, and he's important because he's someone who advised former Vice President Mike Pence about the powers he did and didn't have on January 6th. And he had this to say about the timing of a potential trial.
I have been convinced long before anyone else even suggested it that at least the federal courts would have this trial of the former president with respect to either or both the classified documents case and the January 6th case before the election.
So, Paul, do you think he's right? Will we see a conclusion before Americans cast their votes?
I think we will. It's just a juggle now to see which ball is going to drop first and going to send accountability to Donald Trump. I mean, I think figuring out what he's saying and responding to all of these mounting bingo card of convictions, of charges and indictments really puts a lot of pressure on him. One, to become the nominee to make sure that he can address all of these charges and try and diminish his exposure in terms of jail and prison time, but also to try and force a delay on all fronts, to try and push as many of these out as possible so that his nominee and running for the party is the priority. I don't think he'll be able to do that, especially with this last charge, which is going to be the most serious that we're expecting from the indictment that we're all waiting for on bated breath now. I believe that one of these federal charges are going to supersede his process of becoming the nominee and will overtake the campaign, at least for a period of time. That's what I'm waiting to see. That's what I'm expecting from this target letter indictment that I expect to come out today as well.
Cynthia, just as a reminder of the potential charges Trump may be facing, thanks to that target letter he received 2 weeks ago, it's deprivation of rights under the color of law, conspiracy to defraud the United States, and witness tampering. When you compare that to the criminal charges he's already facing with the classified documents case, the Manhattan hush money case, how does this case stack up? Does the gravity of this one feel different?
It does. I think this is the most important case, maybe since the Civil War. I mean, this case is President of the United States for the first time since George Washington refused to relinquish power, and not only refused to do it, but came up with a conspiracy to try and force the vice president to overturn an election he did not have the right to do, to include fake electors in 6 different states, to lie and say that they were the electors when he knew they were not, and ultimately to start an insurrection with armed people storming the Capitol, not to mention just the disinformation campaign that Rudy Giuliani ran for him. This is the gravamen of his crime against the United States. Well, I think the Florida case is a very important case. That's number 2. And I also think we're going to see yet another superseding indictment in that case. I think the Florida case is important. It doesn't even begin to compare with the violations that the ex-president, has done to the country as a whole, to the voters as a whole, to refuse to listen to the will of the people.
Paul, we have some new reporting out of Georgia as well on the situation where the district attorney there, Fani Willis, is, of course, preparing to potentially indict Trump as well, as early as next week in terms of timing that she's sort of suggested it could come. Willis revealed just today, in fact, a letter that she received last Friday that called her a racial slur. It was especially vulgar. She described this email as, quote, pretty typical. That situation in Georgia seems to be particularly tense with the orange barricades being put up outside the courthouse. Willis asking her staff to work remotely for the first part of August. Paul, are you worried about potential violence?
I'm always worried about potential violence because we've seen it in the past, especially with Trump, in terms of how he rallies his supporters. What he's asking for is for them to protest. What he's asking for is for them to challenge the authority, and that authority is prosecuting him. What I'm looking for in this case, especially in Georgia, and I think we're going to start seeing this more and more, of all of these various prosecutions are going to be sharing information. And so the information we see about election fraud that happens in Georgia, some of that testimony, some of that evidence, some of the evidence being used for those charges will be shared amongst some of these other, and hopefully, especially in this case that we're all waiting for now, the federal indictments that are coming as well. And so what is happening even at a local level matters. All of it puts the taint on Donald Trump, continues to paint him in a very specific light, in a very specific way. I don't think some of his audience cares about it, but the rest of this country is likely to care about it, especially when we start getting more of the details of his very specific behavior, avoiding the transition of power and avoiding the return of documents. That's what I think is at the forefront as well. So I agree with that.
And yet a lot of the voters that we're talking to around the country at his events really see him as the victim, which goes to show how polarized this society is right now.